Phew, I'm exhausted. I'm home, eh? Who are you? Huh? No, who are you? Returning from a long business trip, I found a strange woman in my house. We were both standing there feeling confused when my husband showed up. "Ah, Smith, there's a stranger in our house." "Who is she, your guest?" When I asked, my husband awkwardly scratched his head. "You're back already?" Sighing with frustration, he said, "Well, can't be helped if it's out. You're no longer needed." Stunned by his unexpected words, I blurted out, "What?" I didn't understand what was happening. My husband wrapped his arm around the unknown woman's shoulder in front of me and said, "Can't you see? This is what it means." "What does that mean?" I asked. "She's my girlfriend," my husband declared, with the woman smirking beside him. Seeing them together, I felt like I was on the brink of despair. Where did I go wrong? I am Sarah. I grew up seeing my mom work really hard both at home and at work. Perhaps that's why, after marrying my husband Smith and having our son Matthew, I kept working and taking care of the house. Usually, I would have stopped working to take care of my child after giving birth, but Smith said it wasn't necessary. "Sarah, you love your job, right? So if you want to keep working, I'll support you in doing so." And since then, we've been raising Matthew together. I sometimes dropped off and picked up our son Matthew at daycare and took care of him when he was sick. However, Smith would often take charge and say, "You seem busy. I'll take care of it." On days when I worked late, Smith would say, "I'll make a tasty dinner for you. You can enjoy coming home." Then he'd buy groceries and cook the meal. Thanks to his support, I was able to focus on my job and became the company's youngest manager at the age of 31. I'm so grateful to Smith. Instead of concentrating on his own work, he helped me with Matthew to support my career. I responded to Smith by taking care of my family while also handling household tasks. We helped and cared for each other, believing that we were building a strong family bond. Matthew was in high school, and Smith could now focus on his career. He began to come home less frequently, as if he were putting all the frustration he had built up into his work. Some days, he stayed at the office until midnight, other days, he went on unexpected business trips. "Hey, you've been really busy lately. Are you okay? Not pushing yourself too hard?" I asked Smith because I was really worried. Smith replied without even looking at me, "Yeah, I'm fine. You don't need to worry." Okay, so I believed his words and just watched over him for several years. During the time when Matthew started college, Smith's hard work paid off, and he finally got promoted to supervisor, and I was promoted to the department head. As time passed, our conversations dwindled to almost nothing, likely because we were both busy. Then one day, the CO personally assigned me to a month-long business trip. "A whole month?" I exclaimed. "Yes, I want you to observe the operations and performance there and suggest improvements on site. You can do it, right, Sarah?" With the CO's words, I had no choice but to agree. When I got home to prepare for the trip, Matthew returned from his part-time job. I told him about the trip. "Matthew, I have to go on a business trip for a month. Can you take care of Dad while I'm gone?" "A month? Sure, I'm fine. But have you told Dad?" Not yet. He'll probably be late again today. So can you tell him? I need to get ready for the trip." "Me? I mean, sure. But what?" "Well, I don't really want to talk to Dad much." "Oh, can't be helped. Maybe it's just a sensitive time for him." Towards his father, I reluctantly decided to wait for Smith to come back. I waited for Smith for several hours at the dining table where we used to eat together, but that night he didn't come home. In the end, I left for the trip without seeing Smith. Phew, I'm tired. I'm home. After returning back from the long business trip, I plopped onto the living room sofa and was surprised to see a woman I didn't know. She looked to be in her late 20s. She was a good decade younger than me. Who are you? The woman was just as surprised as me. Asked her. No, who are you? We were both standing there feeling confused when Smith came into the living room. Smith, there's a stranger in our house. Who is she, your guest? When I asked, Smith looked guilty and scratched his head. You're back already? He said with a look of exasperation. Well, can't be helped if it's out. You're no longer needed. Stunned by Smith's unexpected words, I blurted out what I did not understand the situation. Smith embraced the shoulders of the unknown woman in front of me and said, Can't you see, this is what it means. What does that mean? She's my girlfriend, Mia. She's cute unlike you. We've been living here together this past month while you were gone. Smith said this with finality, and Mia, the woman beside him, smirked smugly. Seeing the two of them together, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair. Wait, just wait a minute, so what, you've been cheating? I said while my head was aching. Smith was not flustered at all. Instead, he confidently declared, Yeah, people might say that, but my relationship with Mia is not tied by such frivolous words. It's true love. Stunned by Smith's words, I gasped. What? I sigh in disgust. Enough, I can't talk to you. Mia, did you know my husband was married? Of course, but you don't love Smith anymore, right? What? That's not true. Why would you think that? Smith told me he said his wife is all about work, neglecting home. Even worse, she's a joyless woman who disregards her husband, the main breadwinner. She just focuses on her own career. That's not true. Smith himself had respected my desire to work, and we had agreed to support each other. However, Mia, who was looking down on me, said with a sneer, Smith's pride as a man must be crushed. I wouldn't be such a terrible woman. I would stand by Smith, supporting him from behind. Isn't that what a wife is supposed to do? Her words shook me, echoing feelings I had deep down. Really, Smith? Did you really think that? It couldn't be true. Smith had always respected my wish to work, and he supported me to work. Please, tell me it's not true. But the words that came out of Smith's mouth were cruel. Yeah, I thought so. And I wasn't the only one. Not just you, Matthew thought so too, right Matthew? Smith called out loudly, and Matthew, who had been quietly listening nearby, soon came into the living room. Without meeting my eyes, he said, Mom's always busy with work. Doesn't feel like a mom at all. Right? How is this past month living with Mia while Mom wasn't here? It was fine. She's always at home and doesn't just throw us aside for work. Matthew's current reply made me feel even worse. On the other hand, Smith seemed delighted. Right, so Sarah, we're getting a divorce, then. Mia, let's get married. I'm so happy, Smith. Mia joyfully hugged Smith after his proposal. What am I being shown here? Betrayed by my husband, Smith, and to top it off, even Matthew. I couldn't stay there anymore and fled from the house. I should have fought back boldly for myself as a wife, but I didn't, because just like that woman said, I didn't have the confidence to support Smith as a good wife. With heavy steps, I went to my parents' house. When I arrived, my mother Susan seemed to sense something and quietly let me in. Her kindness made me cry out of frustration. "Smith, he's been cheating." As I told my mother what happened, she smiled mysteriously and said, "Just as planned, we're going in now." What? I didn't understand what she meant. I found myself in my mother's car heading back to my house. Without hesitation, she briskly entered my home, striding up to the living room. "Smith, are you there?" Smith and Mia were sitting together on the sofa in the living room. Smith, surprised by the sudden appearance of his mother-in-law, showed a startled expression. Mia, who was next to him, seemed not to understand what was happening. "Who is this old lady?" My mother wasn't bothered when Mia suddenly called her an old lady, she just smiled warmly. "Oh, such a lovely girlfriend, isn't she, Smith?" Susan said. "I suppose Sarah has told you, but I'm divorcing her to marry this girl." Sarah was not a good wife. She never respected me as her husband, neglected her home for work, and ultimately outshone me in her career, completely crushing my dignity. Smith's words made me feel downhearted. So, I really wasn't a good wife. However, contrary to my feelings, my mother laughed out loud. "Aren't you ashamed to say such things? It clearly shows how incompetent you are. All you need to do is match Sarah's level instead of fooling around, right?" Smith looked flustered, as if my mother hit the nail on the head. "I worked hard and finally became a supervisor." Ha! Working hard, which mouth is saying that? Well, if you want a divorce, go ahead. But in that case, I'll be asking for alimony. The reason, of course, is Sarah's fault. Sure, I did wrong by dating another woman before marriage, but there's no evidence of infidelity. You can't claim alimony without that. That's right, what Smith said, you can ask us for alimony. Both of them mocked my mother, but she remained unfazed. If there's no evidence, then yes, Matthew, it's okay now, come here. Matthew's name coming up now, called by my mother. Matthew appeared with an amused look. "Matthew, the evidence, yeah, got it, Grandma, here." Saying that, Matthew handed a smartphone to my mother. "I wonder what's on that phone." My mother didn't show me, but she confronted Smith and Mia with it. "Can you still say that after seeing this? This is solid evidence of your infidelity, and there's more. This means we can claim alimony, doesn't it?" My mother smiled while she watched Smith and Mia begin to look pale. "What, Matthew, what's this about?" "Matthew, you betrayed us." "Betray? I never liked you in the first place." "What?" "But I've been here all this time, taking care of you instead of your mom. Listen, I'm already in college, okay? And you haven't cooked or done laundry. You're just a freeloader. What kind of mom is that?" "No thanks." Hearing Matthew's blunt words, Mia's eyes filled with tears. "Well, that's how it is. Let's discuss what happens next, shall we?" Unable to oppose my mother any longer, the two quietly agreed to talk. It was all too shocking, and I don't remember much of what happened then. Later, Matthew explained that he and my mother had planned everything. Recently, Matthew suspected something odd about how busy Smith suddenly was, and he brought a plan to my mother. The plan was to gather evidence during my long business trip. The person who sent me on this long trip was my mother, who is the president of the company I work for. During this time, Matthew lived with Mia for a month as a spy to gather evidence of the affair. So, they were in on it together. Then Matthew's words, "Mom, you're always busy with work, you don't seem like a mom at all," so those words weren't true, obviously not. It was hard, but I had to say that to be a spy, right? I see, Dad is really the worst, isn't he, Toby? Involved with such a woman when he has you. I'll never be like that. But I realize I made mistakes too. After all, I didn't give you guys enough attention, and that's true. I felt sorry and said it. Smith looked surprised, as if he was thinking, that's shocking. What are you talking about? You work tirelessly, supporting the family without ever neglecting yourself. Watching you makes me want to do my best too. It's just Dad who didn't have that feeling, not you, Matthew. Smith said this quietly, and I feigned him with tears in my eyes. Thank you, Matthew. No, well, I mean, thanks to, I understood his last mumbled words without having to ask, thank you. Half a year has passed since then. As for Smith and Mia, since their company was a client of the company. I work for my mother's company. The business ties were cut off due to this incident. They ended up bearing the brunt of the damages and were left in a difficult situation. Since I'm divorced and not connected to Smith anymore, there's no need to worry about him. I have plenty of other things to take care of, me, the next president. Yes, my approach is getting old, and I think it's time for a change. But I can't be a president. That's something you can do, Mom. I grew up watching my mother work hard both at home and at her job, and that hasn't changed. She's always been an inspiration to me. Can I really be like her? I wondered anxiously. My mother, as if seeing through my thoughts, smiled kindly. What are you saying? You are a mother too, aren't you? Her words made me realize that I truly am. And I remember Matthew's words, Mom, you're such a hard-working mother, and that really inspires me. Keep it up. I want to inspire Matthew like my mom inspires me, so I'll do my best. I'll do it, I'll try. I decided to become the president, and my mother nodded. Good luck, Mom. A mother facing challenges and striving hard is something everyone admires. I want to be that kind of presence too. Mother is strong, they say.